Today's guide, we're covering Venom. We're going to go over the basics and a couple of additional extra tips when it comes to how to use Venom within this game. And he is one of the only dive vanguards that are available. Him and Hulk are probably the best two options. So like I said, first we're going to cover the basics with Venom, and the first thing is his attacks, which he deals 20 damage per strike, and that is about 120 damage per burst of this. So as you can see, you do it in kind of like burst damage. And then it also has critical hits, which is really useful. So basically you're dealing 120 damage or plus more if you're landing headshots. As you can see there, you can shred through low HP enemies very, very easily. But one thing I do want to mention that people don't take into consideration, that 15 meters is quite a far distance, as you can see here. Venom's next ability is a very easy one to understand, Symbiotic Resilience, and this just basically gives you 100 bonus health and converts 120% of your lost health into bonus health. So once you press the button, essentially it gives you shields for a small duration of time, and the lower your health is, the more shields you'll get. So that is how that works. So as you've seen before, we were on 100 HP, we got a bit of shields back, and then now we were on slightly less HP, but we didn't get as much shields. So Venom's next ability is a bit more of a complex one. So the way it works is that you initiate the tendrils, it holds on to the enemies, it does slow them down. So it applies a 15% slowdown to targets, and once the target exits this 8-meter radius, basically it stops working. So if they run out of that 8-meter radius, then they're basically going to take no damage from this. If they stay within that 8-meter radius, so if you pretty much follow them, then it deals 80 damage. Obviously simultaneously you should be dealing standard obviously damage as well. So Venom's next ability is a web sling, which is pretty much exactly the same as Spider-Man's, more or less, and the only difference is you only get one of these. And then when it comes to his other ability that kind of ties in with this is his dive. Now Venom can dive straight down onto enemy players and basically deals 65 damage on a direct impact. The radius is 6 meters, but if you catch someone on the edge of that radius, then you're only going to deal 26 damage. So the last and final thing with Venom is his ultimate ability, which basically drops him down into the ground and it allows him to devour enemies. Now the way this works is any damage that he deals gets converted into health. So, and the damage is quite interesting. The way this works is because you deal 50% damage to all enemy players regardless of what their health is, plus another 50 damage. So let's say for example an enemy was 200 HP, you'd get them down to 100 HP, but then you get the additional 50 damage, which brings them down to 50 HP. So if they needed finishing off, then that extra 50 HP will get them down by the rest of the damage, obviously. So that's how that would work. But it's quite interesting that you're not going to always get kills with this, but you're definitely going to be dealing a lot of damage. Now I do want to mention a couple of things before we get into the gameplay portion of this video. When it comes to Venom and if you're at close range, what I don't see a lot of people doing, which is intersplicing his actual melee in between his fire. It doesn't stop his firing rate or anything like that. It actually gives you free damage essentially. So you can basically punch and melee in between your firing shots. So that is something that you should be doing, especially if you're close range with Venom. The other thing is comboing with his ultimate. And what I mean by this is basically with his ultimate, it's really good at dealing loads of damage. But one thing you can do essentially is if you swing in, you then dive onto enemy players, then what you want to do is use his ultimate, then you want to use that, then you're going to use your HP, and now you're sitting at some ridiculous health levels with the shields on. So what I mean by this is that we're sitting essentially kind of one shot with Venom at the moment, and just to do that combo again and show you what it looks like, you want to swing in, you want to dive in, you then want to use your ultimate, you want to do that, then you want to do the shields, and you're sitting at basically 1300 HP for a short period of time. Now of course once it disappears you will die, but at this point you can actually escape and get back to your healers or whatever it is, and in the simultaneous time you've outputted so much damage as Venom. Now another way I've seen people use his ultimate ability actually is if you use the tendrils that kind of trap the enemies and then use his ultimate. And that way they're kind of taking extra damage by the tendrils, and you want to wait till they kind of close and then slam your ultimate down on them. Another really cool thing you can do is that if there's no vertical walls to grapple onto with Venom, then what you can actually do is grapple into the ground. And I find myself doing this quite a lot actually, which covers a lot of distance in a very quick amount of time. So as you can see here, you can just grapple straight into the ground here, and that will let you travel a little bit quicker and allow you to escape certain aspects of a fight. You can also pop your shields midway of doing this as well if you really want to escape a lot quicker. So let's talk about how to actually use Venom within this game. Now there's two things Venom has that someone like the Hulk does not have, and this is all movement based. So first of all is the ability to climb on walls. Now Hulk can hang on to walls as well, but I think Venom's ability to do this is slightly more smoother within this game. And you can set up on parts of the map where enemies are not really going to spot you, similar to you could do with Spider-Man, and then dive straight down into the enemy's backline. That's one thing that I need to practice to get good with, but it's something that works so effectively well if you watch high ranked Venom players. They do this extremely well, getting into places where they have no line of sight, where the enemies can't see them, and then they dive straight down onto them, doing tons of damage. You need to make sure the dives are accurate. There's so many times when I started off playing Venom where my dives were just not accurate at all, and even still till now, within the gameplays you're probably going to see my dives are not perfect on point. You want to be able to dive onto direct players at a time, dealing that max 65 damage. Sometimes you take the splash damage if there's multiple enemies nearby, but the idea here is, because he's so fast moving and he's got so much HP compared to some of the other dive heroes, what you want to do is swing right into the enemy's backline, dive straight down onto them, deal damage, and then at the point in which you're going to be low HP, this is when you need to then use your shield ability and shield yourself, deal a little bit more damage, and once you get to around about maybe 400 HP with your shields, you need to get straight out of there. By the time then, your web sling will have regenerated and the cooldown would have finished on that. Then you swing back out of there into your backline, get healed up, wait for all your abilities to reset, and then do it all over again. And that is basically how you want to use Venom constantly. You need to do this all the time. Like I said, mix in those melee attacks as well, because you're going to be outputting way more damage at a quicker pace than someone like a Hulk. So if you are trying to toe-to-toe a Hulk, then that is the way to do it. Now when it comes to his grapple ability, you want to make sure you use this correctly. It's almost like an anti-dive. Now you can also use it against other Vanguards, which is very effective, by the way, because Vanguards move very slow. Even the fastest moving one, which is probably Captain America in my opinion, or even Venom himself, but most Vanguards that you're going to come up against are quite slow, so you can use it on them. You're gripping a hold of them, then you get that extra 80 damage, which is absolutely amazing for getting finishes, by the way, as long as you stay within the range. So of course with Venom you are a dive tank, but you can act as a sort of body shield in certain circumstances. If you're attacking the front line, you can definitely do this with Venom just because of his shield ability and the way it works. So you can definitely tank a lot of damage and act as a body shield or even a body block for certain attacks as well, or against enemies. And the other thing is how to use his ultimate. I want to kind of make sure that you're using your ultimate 90% of the time, or most of the time, on high HP players. And the reason for that is because if you're coming up against a Groot or a Hulk and you're going to do 50% damage to them and they're full HP, that brings them down to 400 or 450 HP, which is a very reasonable HP for your DPS players to finish them off. That is the main thing I would recommend, because bringing them down by 50% is way more important than bringing down maybe like a Luna Snow by 50%, because that's not really going to help too much in terms of how quickly you can kill her. So there we have it. That's my guide on Venom. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.